Welcome to the People of Nature podcast, a conservation optimism podcast to bring forth the unheard voices. In this episode, we are going to dive into the depths of the ocean. Yes, you heard it right. We have a marine biologist in our studio today. We have with us Prachi Hatkar, a passionate marine conservationist who is dedicated to conserve our ocean's biodiversity. Welcome, Prachi, to the People of Nature podcast.
Thank you, Pankaj.
So, Prachi, let me introduce you to our audience.
Sure.
Prachi completed an MSc in Zoology, Oceanography, and Fisheries Science. She is currently pursuing her PhD at the Wildlife Institute of India, focusing on dugong conservation in the Gulf of Kutch. As the first Indian woman to receive an international grant for diving certification from the Women Divers Hall of Fame, Prachi is breaking barriers in this field. Her extensive research, including over 17 published papers and contributions to 21 technical reports, informs policymakers, stakeholders, shaping ground action plans for endangered species. Prachi's commitment extends globally as a member of the Marine Mammals of India research team and affiliations with IUCN's Commission on Education and Communication and the World Commission on Protected Areas. So, with a passion for marine life diversity assessment and conservation's interaction with livelihoods, Prachi is a naturalist dedicated to conserving our marine ecosystems for future generation. So that's Prachi for you all. Welcome once again, Prachi, to our podcast.
Thank you.
So let's move
Is
on
it
to our understanding more about your work, Prachi. Since you are with us for next few minutes, we would like to know more about your work, the kind of life out there, and the threats to the system, and how does it really work. So I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to ask you questions, and then we will start discussing, about your work and all. Does
sure,
that
sure.
sound right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is pretty straightforward. Came to our mind as we were, reading through your bio and all. So you are a Mumbai resident. We all know about it. So being always close to the sea had an influence on your career, as we see that your research work is strongly focused on marine habitats. How did your interest in marine biology start?
So, growing up in Mumbai, I was always captivated by the ocean's vastness and its mystery. I
Mhm.
used to regularly visit the coastline, couple of that coupled with some early fascination with the marine life, which was seen during my childhood trips to my native place, Kelwa Beach. So that
Okay.
actually sparkled my interest. And witnessing the diversity and complexity of the marine ecosystem firsthand, and it instilled a dense deep sense of curiosity and desire to understand and protect this environment. And actually
Mhm.
this passion led me to pursue extensive more studies and
Okay.
form a career in marine biology, which is actually focusing on this unique and critical aspect of marine habitats.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it definitely had a childhood influence being, close to the sea that we see that you are now into marine biology. Wow, that's something
Yes.
that's great to know. So you worked with many institutions. One of those was the National Institute of Oceanography. And you worked on very important marine bioindicator, which you all know as corals. So looking
Yes.
back, how does the state of corals compare then and now?
So, when I began my work in National Institute of Oceanography, we were documenting a significant stress on the coral reef in Gulf of Kutch Marine National Park, which was
Mhm.
actually we were finding out the pollution. I mean, the stress, because what is exactly happening to the coral reef? Is it because of some natural calamities? Is it because of the
Mhm.
man-made calamities such as pollutions, or is it overfishing or climate change? And since then I feel that situation has more become dire and increased in there have been increased instances of the coral bleaching, even if you see
Okay.
along the Mumbai coastline or along the west coast itself. So
Mhm.
because the disease are also growing rising up due to the rising temperature and ocean acidification. But despite of that, some localized effect for coral reef restoration and conservation has been made by various institute WTI, Wildlife Trust of India in Mithapur.
Mhm.
They are trying to assist the even ZSI, Zoological Survey of India. They are
Yeah.
trying to restore this coral reef in the
Okay.
Gujarat coastline.
Wow. That's good to know. I mean, there are a lot of efforts going on into this. So that's great to know. So, I mean, just like National Institute of Oceanography, you have worked with Wildlife Institute of India also
Yes.
closely.
Yes.
You are engaged in various projects. So, your current PhD work definitely will come to that. But prior to that, the Species Recovery Action Plan for sea turtles in Pondicherry. So, what were your
Yes.
findings of from that project?
So, in that, particularly the recovery action plan for sea turtles that
Mhm.
was made for the Pondicherry Forest Department, the
Okay.
team actually identified the critical nesting sites and
Mhm.
what were the actual threats for the nesting sites. Might be coastal development or pollution or
Mhm.
extensive fishing activities in the nearshore areas. So our
Okay.
findings actually highlighted the importance of community involvement in the conservation efforts. As we all know
Okay.
that without community involvement, the conservation actions cannot be taken place or it cannot be implemented on ground. So we actually successfully initiated and implement. I mean, we actually asked the forest
Mhm.
department to initiate some local awareness programs and to collaborate with the fishermen to adopt turtle friendly practices, fishing practices, or if they
Okay.
are getting any information on the turtle stranding, they need to inform the forest department, and which has actually led to some noticeable increase in the nesting success rates also. So
I
the
see.
project actually underscored the effectiveness of combining the scientific research with the community
Mhm.
driven conservation strategies.
Oh, wow. So that's a success story in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So, I mean, I often wonder that, I mean, we don't think so much about marine systems. We don't think so much about what goes on, inside the sea. So, I mean,
Yes.
I think as a terrestrial animal, we all are, we are not
Mm-hmm.
able to grasp the diversity and dynamics in marine ecosystems easily. So,
Yes.
since you have worked in this domain, what unique conservation issues do marine ecosystems face different from terrestrial ecosystems?
So, if you look at the marine ecosystem, there are several marine research data gaps which are still existing. We
Mhm.
haven't explored ocean much. Even only 1% of ocean has been explored in terms of the biodiversity, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Apart
Yes.
from that, there is limited funding pertaining to some marine conservation projects. That
Okay.
might be a challenging because there is a competition for grants, there is limited
Yeah.
financial support available that can constrain the scope and impact of this conservation efforts that we are trying to put on. And there are also some global nature issues, that is like climate change, ocean
Mhm.
acidification, marine pollution, which
Yeah.
needs coordinated international efforts to address it effectively. Apart from that,
Okay.
there is technical limitations also. So if you say like if you are going for a tiger sanctuary, you
Mhm.
will say that
Mhm.
okay, if I want to see a tiger, I'll put a camera trap and then I can record tiger movement, or I can just put a collar or on the tiger
Yeah.
and I can locate it where its movement are going. So if I
Right.
have to tag a shark or a marine mammal,
Mhm.
it's not that difficult that I'll just go and catch from
Yeah.
the sea, they'll put a tag. So there are also some technical limitations for
Mhm.
conducting research, and particularly in marine environment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. It's a vast system to work on, and we know
Yes.
very little about it. I completely agree with you. So, I mean, definitely, it seems that there are so many challenges, not just with respect to funding and the technicalities involved, But as an individual who is working in, in this marine ecosystem, marine biology field, what are the challenges you faced on the field?
So the field work, if you ask me, in marine biology involves particularly overcoming that logistic and environmental challenge. So suppose we
Mhm.
are going in a coral reef survey also. We need to look
Okay.
at the low tide timings, if
Yeah.
the timing is correct, and if we can't reach to that particular timing, then again the tide will again
Mm.
surge up and it will be high tide. So for the reason that we are going to survey, it won't be fulfilled as such. Also some accessing to the some remote areas, underwater sites that require some specialized equipments and transportation, that will be costly and also difficult to maintain. So in case of the
Yeah.
scuba diving, it's not just a sports, but the
Mm.
equipments which are very costly. If you
Yeah.
ask me, if you are carrying out drones, that needs some special maintenance as well. And despite of that obstacles, but the whatever rewarding aspect of this field discoveries and the
Mhm.
positive impact that actually creates is worthwhile. And
Yeah.
apart from that, what the major challenge I foresee is there is lack of awareness among the people,
Mhm.
because most of them do not actually drive into, if we are not from fishing background, or we are just a corporate employees, we won't
Yeah.
understand what impacts is going on the marine field. If you're asking me to conserve some turtles or some sharks or something like that,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
there is some lack of awareness among the audience, or among us itself.
Yeah. That's, I mean, so many challenges you listed actually. It's so difficult to just enter into this, I mean, you need a lot of backup, and definitely what you mentioned earlier, funding. I think it's a very important aspect, when you want to work in such a field. And
Yes.
logistical issues, yes, I mean, diving underwater and studying animals out there must be
So the
really a
weather
tough
conditions
job.
also actually disrupt our plan and also pose some safety risk as well.
Yes, yes, very much. So let me now again take you back to the terrestrial ecosystems, because you have worked in both these different ecosystems altogether. So some of
Yes.
your work has been in the environmental impact assessment domain.
Yeah. Yep.
So how stringent are these environmental impact assessment recommendations, that you give to the industry and corporations? Do they really
So
follow it? What is your experience?
So the adherence to this environment impact assessment recommendations varies widely. So while
Hmm.
some industries actually follow these guidelines rigorously, which are driven
Hmm.
by some corporate social responsibility aspect as well, and some regulatory
Yeah.
pressures that they need to comply it minimally. And
Hmm.
if you ask me for the enforcement of this EI recommendations, that depends on the strength of this regulatory framework and oversight. So my experience
Okay.
has shown that continuously monitoring and public accountability are crucial to ensure this,
Mhm.
that industries actually adhere to the environmental standards and mitigate their impact effectively.
I see. I see. So it's a mixed experience for you.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Yes.
Okay. So some industries are very. I mean, I think they are very
Yeah.
conscious
Some
about it.
industries. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I mean, so it means that there is some positivity that we can, expect from
Yeah.
the people.
Yes.
So
So
that's a
some
great,
of,
great
like,
thing.
I can give you an example also. So Tata
Mhm.
Chemicals in Mithapur area, they have
Uh-huh.
initiated a research program funding for WTI, Wildlife Trust of India. So they have been funding
Mhm.
a whale shark tagging project for past 12 years now. And
Wow.
they have,
Amazing.
yeah, and they have also initiated a CSR activities which actually help the local ladies who are there, who are making some
Mhm.
craft, and they're actually selling it off through this CSR activities. So they're
Okay.
also helping in the coral restoration, and they're also helping in the whale shark conservation. So because of that,
Yeah.
the fishermen actually have been, rescuing the whale sharks. So apart from that,
Nice.
like now almost 70 to 80 whale sharks have been rescued in past 12 or 15 years.
Wow, that's very. I mean, that's a great success story indeed. I mean, there's a livelihood model as well as conservation
Yeah.
model hand in hand.
So, so
Hmm,
it
that's great.
depends on the industries. If some of the industries actually, when I was working in Terracon, so
Hmm.
some of the industries actually approached us for giving us a biodiversity management plan and how they can
Yeah,
take up some actions for the road kills and all.
correct. Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Helpful.
this really that gives us a lot of hope actually from the
Yeah.
industries that are looking towards this. That's good to know. So, Prachi, moving on. So, you have published a significant number of papers in marine conservation. So,
Yes.
what was the highlight of your work? Maybe you can share a story on this for our audience.
Sure, sure. So recently, I had published one paper on sea turtle stranding hotspots along the Maharashtra coast. So
Okay.
for this study, highlighted actually identifying and analyzing the sea turtle stranding hotspots. So stranding means
Mhm.
the turtle is getting washed away because of
Okay.
some. It might be alive or in dead condition as well. So we are trying to figure
Okay.
out what are these main hotspots that we can identify that turtles have been standing along this coastline. So
Okay.
I compiled a 40 years of data, data span with asking with the local department,
Wow.
the forest department as well, and the locals which are monitoring the nesting sites on the whole Maharashtra coast. So they have been
Okay.
giving me information about the stranding, which species have been stranding at exactly when it is stranding. So that
Mhm.
actually pinpointed the high incidences turtle stranding hotspots, and which
Okay.
can be most of the stranding happened in monsoon time. And the nesting
Okay.
species, which was olive ridley, which is the smallest,
Mhm.
and it is the numerous species which is found all along the west coast, is being
Okay.
identified that it has been stranding a lot. So we need to
Oh, I see.
we have identified this hotspot, and we are recommending some strategic recommendation plans for the Maharashtra coastline that can be implemented
Mhm.
by the future forest department people, and also involving the local communities for the conservation programs.
Right. So that's, I mean, that's a massive amount of data that you have. Like 40 years is like really a lot of data. And I mean, that's great because we hardly have such kind of research happening, in India where like such kind of massive data has been like utilized. First of all, we don't have such kind of data to begin
No,
with
no.
for many species. But yeah, I mean, if you could get such a data set, definitely you can be very confident about what you are recommending.
Yes.
So great. I mean, that was again something new for me. So now I'm going to again take you back to the ocean, and now you want to tell us about your PhD project on recovery of dugongs and their habitats.
Yeah. So the project has been sponsored by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and it has been
Okay.
implemented by Wildlife Institute of India. And my PhD
Mhm.
project focuses on this conservation of dugong habitats. So dugong, being a only herbivorous marine mammal in all over the world, it only feeds on
Mhm.
seagrasses. So, if you ask any of us, we might hardly know about what are seagrasses. So, seagrasses are
Mhm.
nothing like marine plants. If you
Okay.
see, it might be vast as a football
Mhm.
ground as well. So, these seagrass meadows actually help in carbon accumulation. So, it works
Mhm.
same as mangroves. So, but
Okay.
we all know about coral reef, mangroves, but hardly very few people know about that seagrass also exists, and they are also
Mhm.
playing some ecological important role in carbon sequestration. So
Yeah.
actually helps to accumulate more carbon than all these ecosystems, as you if you ask me. So my
Okay.
PhD is working on the dugong habitats. So I am
Mhm.
through my PhD, I am recommending which are the pollution indicator species that the forest department needs to monitor for the future. So how their abundance or how the population is being varied
Mhm.
in the critical dugong habitats, and
Mhm.
what mitigation measures they can be implemented for if they find any the associated faunas have been lower down or higher because of some pollution which is happening in the protected areas. So that
Right.
needs to be done. So that for that I am collecting some data and also getting, I mean, helping in the community engagement for the conservation efforts as well.
Okay. So it has all these like so species. So research based on the species that are dugong basically, their
Yes.
habitats and community involvement. So all these are
Yes.
in your PhD research, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So how often do you meet dugongs?
I just found one dugong first and last dugong sighting in Gulf of Kutch, which was actually the first
Okay.
photographic evidence.
Oh.
In 2 years back, when I was going for my field survey for the PhD survey
Mhm.
itself, so
Mhm.
my one of my colleague accompanied me for his drone survey, and we
Okay.
were actually collecting the sediment samples, and he just called me saying that you come here fast. I was like, okay, I'm collecting sediment
Mhm.
samples, and the tide low tide is
Yeah.
going on now. If the high tide comes, then I won't be able to take the sediment
Right.
samples and all. So he was like, okay, let it be, but you just come. I sighted something. I think it's a dugong. Then I just rushed
Mhm.
to him and I
Mhm.
saw that actually it was a dugong, and it
Wow.
was just near the areas where we were actually sampling. And I was
Oh,
like,
I see.
okay, so this is the foraging areas, and dugong have been
Mhm.
because the I mean, the reef top was exposed. He was
Mhm.
actually beside that reef top, swimming on that meadows over there. So that was the
Oh,
first
wow.
dugong photographic evidence which we got from Gulf of Kutch.
Wow, wow. Amazing, amazing. Wow. So that's something great. So you have been, you have cited dugong and now you are studying their habitats in that area.
Yes.
Wow, that's really fantastic. So I'm coming down to your third objective of your PhD thesis, in which you are talking about community involvement.
Yeah.
So we see that there are very few marine biologists who are actually involved in outreach activities. So you
Hmm.
personally are involved in several talks and outreach activities which is related to
Yes.
marine biology.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How is the current level of response to such marine outreach events? And also, I would just like to add, if a person is not near seashore, so they are not, let's say, citizens not living in not coastal areas. Okay, so
Hmm.
can they also contribute to marine conservation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll go one by one. So, what is the current level of response to marine outreach events?
So the response to this marine outreach events has been very encouraging with growing public interest in the marine conservation. So people are becoming more aware of the importance of healthy oceans. If we all have studied in geography that okay, seven seas are there, and
Mhm.
actually the seas govern this whole planet climate that we have forgotten. So if when
Yeah.
I when we conduct some awareness programs locally, we start with the basic. What are oceans?
Mhm.
Why do we need to conserve this oceans, and what are the impacts that will be that are hampering this marine ecosystem, and why we are particularly emphasizing on some particular species. If they go extinct, what will happen? And
Mhm.
citizens in for your second questions, if you ask
Yeah.
me the second question for how the people citizens in non-coastal cities can also contribute to the marine conservation, so they can get
Mhm.
into sustainable seafood choices also. They can
Okay.
participate in local environmental initiatives,
Mhm.
advocating for the policies which actually protect the marine environment. And obviously
Yeah.
the education and awareness are the key. Everyone can play a role in spreading the message and supporting this conservation efforts. So small
Yeah.
things you can change that we can use is stop using single use plastic bags, start using
Yeah.
cloth bags. If we can't reduce, then we can I mean we can't reduce, then stop using it, because ultimately
Yeah.
nothing gets recycled, but we keep on going. The whole waste goes in landfilling. So if
Yeah.
you can't reduce recycle, stop using it, or reducing it will be much better impact to the environment as well as the marine conservation.
Right, right. I mean, I absolutely agree with you that even people who are not living in coastal cities, I think they're very much aware about marine environment because fish has been a part of diet for almost, across the country. And
Yeah.
I guess you correctly mentioned that having good choices, diet choices as well as this reduce, recycle, reuse kind of a philosophy,
Yes.
if they adapt, then that can
That
mitigate
can
a
all.
lot of issues.
Yes.
Yes, great. So nice talking with you so far, Prachi. Um, Let me ask you a very open question since you work in marine biology, and what are the gender-based challenges have you faced, working in the marine conservation field?
So, if you ask a marine biologist who is a woman, first of all,
Mm,
I mean, if you ask anybody that particularly girls are not into hardcore field work. I mean, very few people
mm,
are there who are actually driven by their passion, and they're working in jungles as well as marine
yeah,
environment as well. But particularly in fieldwork, if you see that it is of course physically demanding and
yeah,
traditionally male dominated. So
mm,
there have been few instances where my capabilities were questioned based on the gender rather than
mm.
merit. So, but
Correct,
I
correct.
have been fortunate to have some supportive mentors and colleagues who actually value the diversity and inclusion. So,
Mm,
overcoming this challenges has been strengthened to resolve and to advocate this gender equality and support other women in this field also.
okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's some of our earlier speaker also mentioned a similar thing that, gender comes first and then your merit, and that's how you're judged,
Yeah.
when there's a male dominated field, especially like this. So, I think it's nothing new as such, but also it's not very, it's unfortunate in a way. Though it's not new.
Yeah.
So, but it's good that you have got mentors who supported you and keep on supporting you for doing what you do. So that's a great, great, really success story in a sense, I would say. So coming down to our last question of this podcast, so what is the message that you want to give to our audience, particularly youngsters who want to get into conservation, especially marine conservation?
So, my message to the young conservationists who are getting into conservation or want wish to get into conservation field, that you
Mhm.
need to stay passionate and persistent. It's not like I got this huge success just within time span of some 4 5 years, and like some
Right,
corporate, if you ask that how much I'm earning or how much is my
right,
success. So it has been a long journey of around 12 years right now, and the
right, right.
field of conservation can be challenging, but it is also
Yes.
incredibly rewarding. You need to educate yourself continuously, seek out for mentors, and don't be
Mhm.
afraid to voice your ideas and take initiatives.
Yeah.
Obviously, and collaboration is the key to conservation. So start building up some new strong network with like-minded
Mhm.
people, and remember that every small action counts, and together we can make a significant impact on preserving our planet's biodiversity. So your dedication and efforts are vital for this future of our environment.
Great. So very inspiring words, Prachi. Indeed, I myself am inspired by your words, and we always say, we talk about our planet, and I think the first thing that comes to our mind is a blue planet, and hardly
Yes.
we talk about that blueness in our planet. So in today's conversation with you, we realized so many things about marine biology, marine conservation, and something that we are completely neglecting as a, of course, as a terrestrial animal. But thanks a lot, Prachi, for joining us and enlightening with your work and telling so many stories that are out there hidden, but nobody knows about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prachi.
Thank you.